Speaking of the Xfinity Series, let's head down there for this next little bit of news as Noah Gragson will return to Junior Motorsports in 2022 with the help of Bass Pro Shops, Black Rifle Coffee, and True Timber returning as partners for the number 9 car next season. And it's looking more and more likely with each day that Junior Motorsports is going to be a 5-car operation next season full-time with Sam Mayer, Josh Berry, now Noah Gragson, just waiting on Michael Annett and Justin Allgaier, 2 guys that are there currently, are looking to be re-up for next season. But all signs are pointing towards that. And that would be a big step for Junior Motorsports to go with 5 cars full-time next season. But it would make a lot of sense. They don't really have much room elsewhere to really move these guys. If they were to move on, Michael Annett brings in sponsorship, may not have the best results. Of course, the playoff situation, it is what it is due to him missing a couple of races here, not by his own doing. I credit him for taking his health into consideration here and putting that first. But then for Justin Allgaier, could go out there and win the championship this season, is always a championship contender. So you have a really strong 5-car organization here. Noah Gragson still trying to find that first win this season, has had some bad luck by his own doing, but also just bad luck circumstances. And then you have an up and coming prospect that is going to do very, very well for himself, it seems, in this sport, in Sam Mayer, with Josh Berry, of course, being the clear reason why he's getting that number 8 seat next season. So lots of things to be excited about if you're a Junior Motorsports fan or a Dale Jr. fan or one of these 5 drivers fans for probably next season. So makes a lot of sense that Noah Gragson is staying around in 2022. Didn't really have an option elsewhere to go up to the Cup Series in 2022, that is. So hasn't really shown enough in the Xfinity Series, I would argue, either, especially this season. You would have expected him to really try and take that next step and win races consistently. When you look at the other drivers he's around, he should be up there with the likes of an Austin Cindric or an AJ Allmendinger in that top 4 for sure in the regular season points. Given the previous results of that number 9 car, specifically a basically formidable championship opponent year in and year out, whoever goes into that car hasn't quite been fulfilled by Noah Gragson since he stepped into this Junior Motorsports ride, since moving it from the Truck Series from KBM. So your thoughts here on Noah Gragson, Kyle? Makes a lot of sense, at least from my perspective. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, I thought that he could have been a candidate to go up to the Cup Series with a mid-pack / back marker team. Thought he could have been a candidate for JTG if they did want to keep that second car, because he does bring a decent bit of sponsorship with the Bass Pro Shops, Black Rifle Coffee stuff that he has on the car, especially this season. But I think it's probably best for him as a driver to stay in the Xfinity Series and try and just push the season aside, kind of regroup into next season. And he can obviously still do that into the playoffs, but thought he could have been a candidate for a GMS Cup Series ride, stay with Chevrolet, do so with them. He was a name that I had seen a couple of times kind of linked with them. So I'm not certain what GMS has up their sleeve now if they do go full-time in the Cup Series. But for Gragson, the best thing for him is just going to be to find that consistency. This year kind of went a little bit haywire, had a great start to the year, should have won Homestead if it wasn't for the chaos that was the David started blown tire. But that's the situation that he found himself in, and he hasn't really been able to find his groove again so far this season. So he's had a couple of good results here and there, hasn't been able to find victory lane. He's in the low single digits in terms of overall season points. Going to be hard pressed in the playoffs given the last lack of playoff points as well. But re-ups, has another season at Junior Motorsports where he can go out and in likely a 5-car stable look to be the guy at that team and parlay himself into a Cup Series ride. And so probably best to keep those Junior Motorsports ties as well. We know that at some point they're going to end up in the Cup Series. Probably it's just a matter of when, and maybe keeping those options open into next year isn't the worst thing in the world either. But a couple of good sponsors on board, talented race car driver that just needs to figure things out a little bit. Couple of flashes here and there this season, tough sophomore season here. And so he needs to kind of really start to find his groove into next season if he's going to be a true Cup Series level driver.
Do you think it would be his last chance next season if he doesn't perform?
No, last chance is harsh to say.
Okay, maybe I should reword it, but just like this would be one of his, it would be a really pivotal year for him to make it to the Cup Series. If he doesn't perform, if he has a similar season this year as he does next year, do you think the expectations change around Noah Gragson's potential in the sport?
I think his potential has kind of been known the entire time, to be honest. He wasn't a championship level driver in the Pro Series West, K&N at the time, which is the lesser of the two, East versus West. He was top 5 in K&N Pro East at the time. Went to the Truck Series, was good with KBM, especially in 2018, where he's a championship contender there. But I don't think he's ever been this caliber of prospect that's a top 5 prospect that looks to be a potential future star or anything like that. He's been good at the lower levels. He's had his flashes. But I think overall, in terms of potential, he's always been kind of a mid-pack kind of guy. And we're kind of seeing that same thing now. I think into next season, if he has another similar year to what he's had this year, and sorry, I misspoke earlier. This is his 3rd Xfinity Series season already. Time is insane. But I think the important thing to note there is that next year will be his 4th Xfinity season. And if it kind of goes the same way that it's kind of gone these last couple of seasons, starting to get into that Brandon Jones territory of some bad luck is involved, but overall you've been there at a good ride for a long enough time, need better results. And things could have gone a lot differently for Gragson last year. You just think about Texas and the chaos that was the end of that race. Wow. Had a great last little stretch there in the playoffs with a lot of top 3 results, but this year hasn't been able to find that same groove. If he can do that in the playoffs, I think a lot of the conversation changes around Gragson. But yeah, next year is going to be a make or break season in terms of what his Cup Series future prospects will be. But I think this year you're already starting to kind of get that feeling that he's probably not going to land that top Cup Series ride at any point. Like he's definitely not any of that replacing Jimmy Johnson and Hendrick Motorsports or anything like some people thought he could have been at one point. But yeah, he's it's going to be I won't go a last chance or anything like that into the next season, but it'll absolutely be a make it or break it season. Yeah,
I can agree with that. It's not blossomed into something that I thought that Noah Gragson would have potentially done by now. I thought he would have been, in the Final 4. It seems if he makes it this season, then maybe my perceptions will change a little bit, but I think that's a little bit far-fetched for him to go that deep in the playoffs this season. But next season, I need to see the consistency and need to see him win some races. A track's different than a Homestead or something like that. If he can diversify his skill set, because he seems like to be more of a one-dimensional kind of driver rather than not, with running the high line and using more of the throttle. He's got really good skill set in that area. But I think road course racing, he's kind of meh in terms of what you look at. When you look at somebody like Justin Allgaier, or even, Austin Cindric is somebody you can't really compare because he's one of the best in the series. But I just think that there's a lot of room for improvement for Noah Gragson if he really wants to make that next step to the Cup Series for 2023. He's going to have a really big 2022 season if 2021 does not finish the way that it's kind of currently, if it does finish the way it's currently looking like it will for the number 9 car. But fascinating to see. This may be one of his final chances in a junior motorsports car for next season. If he can not get the results in 2022, let's hope he does, so that for his own sake, for his own career, that this is a good move for him moving forward and he finds that Cup Series ride, because that's obviously what we want at the end of the day for a lot of these guys, that they do end up to the Cup Series. It's just that his options may be limited by the time he may be ready to get there, or the option may not be what he initially hoped it would when he started this journey with KBM and even back to the K&N days and stuff like that. So lots of different things to keep your eye on for Noah Gragson and that junior motorsports stable, as well as the season kind of winds down here. Who's going to end up with them? 5-car organization seems likely. We'll see if that does actually come to fruition probably soon. I imagine they won't leave it too long before they announce if they are going to be going with 5 full-time cars.